look at a reflex that's a little bit more complicated. In this case, our friend is not touching a hot iron, but is stepping on a nail. A couple of things have to happen. We can't just lift our foot off of the nail, or what would happen?
Bleed out?
Probably not from your foot, I mean, depending, I guess, on where exactly you hit. You fall. So you can't just lift up the affected foot. You have to plant the other foot so that you don't fall. So let's look at how that happens. We're starting out with cell 1 as a somatosensory neuron again, right? Cell 1, somatosensory neuron sends the information from the peripheral nervous system to the central nervous system. A little bit hard to see, it's moving. Okay, so that's cell 1. The first thing we have to do is lift the foot off of the nail. So cell 1 is going to excite an interneuron, which is going to excite the motor neuron for the flexor to tell the flexor to contract. Okay? Our muscles work in opposing pairs, right? We don't just contract the flexor, we also have to not contract the extensor. To do that, we have cell 1 exciting an inhibitory interneuron this will inhibit the motor neuron for the extensor, which will then not contract. Okay. So somatosensory neuron was cell 1. Let's call that cell 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So that takes care of the first foot. We have lifted it off the nail. We simultaneously need to balance on the other foot. To do that, we have to send the information to the other hemisphere, that is to the other side of the spinal cord. So, same cell 1 is going to excite an interneuron that will cross over to the other side of the spinal cord. For the other foot to balance, which muscle do we need to contract? Extensor. So here we're going to excite the motor neuron for the extensor, which will tell it to contract. So these are all motor neurons here that synapse on muscle cells. We can't just contract the extensor, we also have to not contract the flexor. So here we excite an inhibitory interneuron, which will inhibit the motor neuron for the flexor. It will not release neurotransmitter, and the flexor will not contract. And let's give these the rest of these numbers. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's call this cell 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. With your groups, I want you to identify the circuits in this reflex.